Hi everyone, we're back in the Cobb TV studios with Chairman Mike Boyce for his weekly visit. And Chairman, when we last talked last week, we were talking about some of the boards and authorities, specifically the Development Authority, and there was some rather, let's just say, robust discussion about the old Villa Rica project Tuesday night.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of discussion we want to have. I mean, why would you want to take a vote on something unless you have all the facts? And the only way you're going to get all the facts is you have what I call an informed discussion, and sometimes they're robust. But that's the nature of democracy. You just, you want to get those out there, and people have both sides, to an issue. And I think that as long as everybody understands where everybody, what both sides look like, then you can understand why they voted the way they did. But this is interesting because the housing authorities, not just development authority, let's just talk about the housing authorities alone because they're kind of unique in their nature. The housing authorities were established by the state legislature under the Housing Law Act of 1937. And that authorized the counties to stand up these housing authorities. So the state legislature granted the approval for us to do it. And then the city of Marietta and the county later on both established housing authorities. And in the case of the Marietta Housing Authority, they had the jurisdiction of within 10 miles of downtown, of the square, to go out and build what we now call affordable housing. Now let's just use that term for now because that's the one that we want to focus on. And obviously that 10 miles included going into unincorporated Cobb County. During the 1970s, because of the nature of the changing federal legislation, there was the opportunity for the county to get involved into affordable housing. And we deferred to the Marietta Housing Authority. Now, I still have to find out whether that was a formal deferment or an informal one. In other words, we allowed them to work within the county to build these affordable houses. And then in the 1980s, the county stood up our own Cobb County Housing Authority. So we now have in existence 2 housing authorities. And I can assure, and right now they're both active. Matter of fact, this week the Cobb County Housing Authority closed on a deal in conjunction with another developer here in the county. And then the Marietta Housing Authority has either built or is in the process of building 11 of these developments here in the county. The unique aspect of the authorities is that they're exempt from the zoning. In other words, when we wrote the ordinances for the Housing Authority, they were exempt from zoning. Now, 80 years ago when this law came into effect, or even 25 years ago when both these authorities were in effect, the county was not as populous as it is now. But let's get real, there's 760,000 people here, so that means that there are more and more developments here to house 760,000 people. So the nature of where we put these kind of affordable housing has become more and more of an issue. And I think we need to be very, very careful here because what we're starting to do here is we're starting to stigmatize the seniors by referring to them in categories that are simply not true. We're trying to, in some corners of the county, we're discussing these seniors as if they're low income or they're people that don't have any responsibility. And we got to be very, very careful about this because that's simply not true. Senior housing, you qualify for it if you're 55 years of age or older. And we have over 60 residential senior living program developments in the county alone right now, all right, where you have to be 55 or older, but there's 60 scattered throughout the county. But these are not affordable housing. These are ones that are market driven where people have to pay top dollar to get into them, but they want to do that because they love the amenities that come with them, they love the downsizing, they love the neighborhoods. But affordable housing, the issue has become where the location of some of these affordable housing developments are going. And that's what happened on Tuesday night. The issue was that one of the commissioners, 2 of the commissioners, believe that the nature of the density of that development did not match the characteristic of the neighborhood. And that's an important aspect when we refer back to what I call the Steinberg rules that are the basic tenets that we as a county are supposed to use to help us guide our decision in zoning issues. But I think it's important to underscore that we can have all the zoning issues we want to discuss about housing authorities, but they're exempt from zoning. You know, just like churches are exempt from zoning, just like cemeteries are exempt from zoning. They have to meet certain criteria of the county as far as being, they got to still meet their safety codes and the ordinance we have in to protect the county from the public safety issues and issues involving water and sewer and things like that. But the bottom line here is there are certain categories of developments that occur in Cobb County that are exempt from zoning, and the housing authorities is one of those. But clearly, I think after Tuesday night, it has come time we may need to relook at that, because you don't want to be shoehorning these affordable housing these developments, into areas where the neighbors are not comfortable because they believe they impact the characteristic of the neighborhood, which goes back to the Steinberg rule. So we don't want to have, on one hand, one party saying we can do this because the law says we can do this, and on the other hand, you have the public saying, yeah, but you're here to protect our interests. And I think that squeezing the board between these two immovable objects is something where we need to start addressing that. And start on Tuesday night, we're clearly going to have a review about what it is we expect from the housing authorities when they come to start putting this development somewhere to avoid the kind of controversy that came with the vote on Tuesday night. Because the vote on Tuesday night was, in fact, to not approve the loan as being characterized as a tax-exempt loan. That's what we voted on, all right? The arguments as to why we voted against that 4-1 had nothing to do with did they or did they not meet the category of qualifying for a tax-exempt bond, when in fact they had met all that criteria. But the argument, was shifted to another point, which is about it didn't meet the nature of the neighborhood. And the bottom line here is that the housing authority, if it chooses, and I don't think it will, they can still go back and find another source for that loan to build that additional development there, and be within the compliance with the law as to how they establish that development there. So, again, because we are becoming more and more of a suburban urban area, we need to take a harder look at some of the policies we've had in the past that talk about bonds as a whole, not just the housing authority, but bonds as a whole. Because the development authority, as you know, they can approve tax abatements, or they can approve refinancing of a loan where they get a better rate because we're a AAA county. But again, it goes back to the nature of what those loans are. I mean, the county has two kinds of bonds that we do here when we borrow money to get what we want. We have a bond that helps us pay for the SunTrust Stadium, and that's a revenue bond, and that has to be paid for out of the county general fund. And you have bonds like we used to buy the green space. That has to be paid for outside with a separate tax on your tax bill. The general fund part of the bonds are paid for using their lower millage rate because you qualify for the homestead and the floating exemption. Whereas the revenue bonds, those are fully taxed against the appraised value of your property. So again, a lot of moving pieces, and sometimes you have a case that makes you take a hard look at what you're doing, and that's what happened on Tuesday night. We had to take a hard look at what it is we expect the housing authorities to do before they start putting these developments into the county.
And I think one of the interesting things that I saw watching this develop is how the commissioners came to realize the board's role in approving or looking at these requests for bonds changed or has changed.
Yeah, a lot of it was driven by the resolution that was going to go into, if it had been approved, the resolution attached to approving the tax incentive nature of the bond. Now, there was some focus on whether or not this bond served, the program behind the bond served a public interest. And I argued, yes, it does. Affordable housing is an issue in Cobb County. Even if all these apartments, these residential apartments for seniors have been built, we would still be, well over 1,000 short of what we need in the county, particularly in that part of the county, to meet their known requirement for affordable housing for seniors. And the reason I take a look at the bigger picture is that as the median price of homes go up in Cobb County, there's the very real danger of gentrifying neighborhoods where people are priced out of their homes, even with a floating exemption, all right? What they may have to pay for the fire fund, because in case of my general property tax, I'm paying more for my fire fund part of the tax than I'm paying for my general fund part of the tax because I get the floating exemption. Well, I can afford it. But there are an increasing number of people in this county who simply can't afford to pay their taxes because you're not exempt from your taxes going up against the fire fund part of your tax bill, and of course the parks bond. And then there's the ever-present school tax. Now, by the time you get to be 55 or older, you probably don't have any kids in school, and so if you're 62 and you're still in your home, you're going to get a huge tax break because you're relieved from having to pay the school tax. But the fire fund is going to go up every year because it's taxed against the fully appraised value of your home. And while some people think, well, what's another $25 or $30 here? I think it's important to remember that $25 or $30 to some people in this county is a lot of money. And it doesn't take much for you to be pushed over the edge. And there's this perception that it'll never happen to me. I'm sure people who are now in that predicament believe that 25 or 30 years ago, they never saw the median price of a house in Cobb County being $280,000. We have to be very, very cautious in trying to prejudge the circumstances of the future. And we need to remember that it goes to the heart of what I've been saying about that spectrum of the county that we just assume not talk about, but is always going to be there because they're there, and the county is going to have to deal with them whether they like it or not. And affordable housing is one of those issues. The homelessness is another of those issues. Substance abuse is another of those issues here, where it may not be in our charter to address those issues specifically, but we have to deal with the consequences of them. Why is that? Because the people expect us to address those issues. And we're trying to get ahead of the game here in the case of affordable housing, using the Marietta Housing Authority, the Cobb Housing Authority, programs we have right now. We're using partnering with the Federal Home Loan Bank and banks in this county to get people into homes where they can be comfortable knowing that they'll be able to afford the mortgage. But I'm not insensitive to the need, or nor do I take it for granted that once you're in a home, you're always going to be able to have it. That's just simply not going to be the case if you're not careful.
And I know we had a summit recently on affordable housing that I think there were 100 people at that one.
There was,
and
close to 100.
Another one scheduled coming up.
That's right. We are, from that forum we had on affordable housing, on homelessness, we are now having another set of working groups in the middle of November to specifically address those aspects of the homeless that we believe we can solve here to meet our ultimate goal of making sure that everyone in Cobb County, if they're homeless, has at least a shelter and somewhere to go where they can be fed and have some of their needs addressed.
And I know another thing you wanted to talk about, we were recently at a legislative reception at the Sewell Mill Library and Culture Center, and a lot of the people that came there, some of the legislators, had never been there before. Yeah. And it was interesting seeing their reaction to it. And then after that, you had the chance to go to the Library Foundation's gala as well. That was pretty well attended.
Yes. Well, I've always said, and I'll say it again, is the library reflects a cultured and educated society. They are the cornerstones for a cultured and educated society. If you look at any civilization in the history of mankind, somewhere in that civilization, they had an institution that preserved their literature. Now today, our libraries are on the forefront of this cultured and educated society by the means that they deliver information to you. And those who think that a library is simply a place to go to get books clearly haven't been to a library in a while. And that also means they have never been to the Sewell Mill Library. That is a technological marvel that reflects both the community and the county staff working to get ahead of what we think the needs are for this county for those kind of amenities. I just found it amazing that so many people who live in this county had never been to this place, but that's, I guess, because I spend so much time in the county doing these things. Of course you go to it because it's a great place to be. But I was really pleased to hear about their reaction to it. And that means that, the legislature does a great job of supporting our libraries by providing us funding during their session. And we want to continue that. But more importantly, I think it shows them that if you provide us resources to do things in this county, we're going to produce a high quality end item. And that library certainly reflected that. And the new North Cobb Regional Library in its own way is unique. So again, I'm just really, really pleased that we have both the county and the community in the form of the Cobb County Library Foundation getting together to support our library system here, and was really, really pleased to see former Governor Deal's wife, Sandra Deal, at that program, talking about the importance of reading in our society today, and what she did during her time as the First Lady to enhance that important aspect of our youth.
I'll tell you, as long as they keep that coffee shop in the Sewell Mill Library, I'm going to be going back there all the time. I love that. Appreciate you coming in, Chairman. Again, subscribe to his newsletter, all our social media, to keep on top of everything going on in this county. There is a lot going on this time of year, so stay in touch, and I guess we'll see you in the coming weeks.
We'll be back.